Hello, welcome to this video. It is a music arts ranking video, and in it I'm going to be reviewing the classic Marvel superhero movies, classic Marvel film. I've already done a DC listing in two parts, well, two parts and a bit, and now I'm going to do Marvel. Different kettle of fish, yes. I have to say, these are all my opinions. You probably don't agree with me about my listing or rankings. It's perfectly fine. Leave any comments you like below. So I'm always interested to hear what people think. So let's get started, shall we? Marvel on film was a long time in coming to a creative iteration of the world of the famous comic books. On TV, there were some attempts to depict the adventures of Spider-Man, but they were very poor due to lack of technology in visual effects and filming and so on. The Hulk series was a bit more successful. It created good, entertaining TV drama, but it wasn't the Hulk of the comics. For the same reason that the Spider-Man series wasn't so good. It suffered from the same problems. It wasn't until later, when the film technology had improved, that the three seminal Spider-Man movies could be made, and these are my first, the first on my list. And that's the first one on VHS. See it? And I've got all of them, but I'll show you so some of them are tucked away on shelves and so on. So that's the third one. Third one. Excuse me a minute, I'm just looking at my notes. Before that, on the big screen, there were a couple of Captain America movies that weren't very good. One of them was hardly the same character, and the other one was a bit plodding. Wasn't very well paced. But it wasn't until improvements in film technology facilitated the Spider-Man films, starring Tobey Maguire as the web slinger, and that the Marvel films started to become classic. This list is all movies, as the TV shows were never quite classic, even the more recent ones. Sorry about that, just had to adjust the screen. Following Stan Lee's revolution in the superhero genre from the early 60s, the three Spider-Man films present well-paced action dramas with the web-slinging hero every bit as visually exciting as Christopher Reeve's Superman from decades before was. Engages in adventures with favourite supervillains from the comics, the Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus, Sandman, and Venom. These stories involve characters. Also, in keeping with the Stan Lee policy to place superheroes in the real world and give them personalities that the audience can relate to. The Marvel films are complex in terms of language, action, and relationships. And this Lee-inspired quality continued. This Lee-inspired quality continued in Marvel filming until this present day. And the most recent one is Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, which I've just seen at the theatre. But more later about that. Anyway, later, after the Spider-Man movie's success, the MCU, which began with the Iron Man films, continued this project, and when watching the movies, one either directly relates to the characters or recognizes them from one's social experiences. The best of the MCU movies are great in the same way as Shakespeare's plays in his time, and more recently Arthur Miller and Alan Ayckbourn's plays. So with Spider-Man 1, 2 and 3, we have well-paced action-adventure dramas. The following two Spider-Man films of Sony Pictures didn't quite step up to the mark. Neither did the Fox X-Men pictures, not at first anyway. I'll come to some of those later. They were plodding in terms of dialogue and action. Though there were decent films about outcasts, they didn't quite make my classic Marvel list. Iron Man 1 and 2 created the character of Tony Stark, behaving exactly as a successful man behaves, also as a man who is destined to be successful behaves. And here we have it. That's the Iron Man movie. You see it? Iron Man movie. And Iron Man 2. I'll show you the first one anyway, Iron Man 2. Iron Man 1. There we have it. As I was saying, characters Tony Stark. The stories and action are well realised and introduce the characters, various agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Black Widow, who is very much the girl next door. Excuse me. Although I've not actually met, although I don't actually relate to Tony Stark, like I did with Peter Parker, of course, I have met people who are just like him. The Marvel characters tend to be types who are recognizable, but who are also superheroes. Peter Parker, the high school kid with all his expectations and problems, but he's also a superhero. This raises a question prevalent in much of classic Marvel film. Can I be a superhero? The answer is yes. Everyone has superpowers within them, powers conversant with the inherent radiating goodness from Stan Lee, spilling over into the Marvel movies, into the fictional worlds in the Marvel movies. The first two Iron Man films represent the success, or repeat rather, the success of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies in all respects. With the next movie on my list, The Incredible Hulk, difficult to get this, The Incredible Hulk. With The Incredible Hulk, Marvel achieves what the makers of the TV series were seemingly attempting to do, but failed. The CGI Hulk is spectacular as he fights one of the favourite comic book villains, the Abomination. Again, the characters are well written and recognisable people. The first Hulk film wasn't as good as this. The CGI was great and the action, but the characters were rather plodding and not quite as well rounded or written. The next one on my list is the Captain America movie, or two Captain America movies. I'll mention them both together. There's the first one. The first one, Captain America the First Avenger. And the other one, the second one, which is historically later in the overall story arc of the Marvel movies, but it's the second one, Captain America the Winter Soldier. The Captain America movies are a step up in superhero action dramas with complex and interesting stories. Excuse me. Sorry. The audience is shown in the Captain America movies that it is possible to both be righteous and strong, as Captain America battles against Hydra, a Nazi weapons division in World War II, and then more modern day threats fostered by the remnants of Hydra in the second movie. His relationship with his boyhood friend Bucky is examined in the drama, and as generally his relationships are all one by one challenged by various predestined events. In the Marvel stories, the good guys are presented as real, but the villains tend to be egotistical or megalomaniacs, perverse and fractured, but even they are complex or many-faceted personalities. I'm not including Iron Man 3 or Captain America Civil War in my list, as firstly, the character of Tony Stark becomes weak in the narratives, and secondly, in Civil War, the story of superheroes fighting one another is not plausible. And especially the fight between Iron Man and Captain America, Iron Man v Captain America especially, is ridiculous. If Tony was so upset about the murder of his mother, he could have killed both Captain America and Bucky Barnes. He was powerful enough. Another reason that I'm not including them is that I didn't like the idea, although it was funny, I didn't like the idea that the famous villain, the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, turned out to be a con, an actor who was hired to pretend to be this terrorist, make these films, to send to terrorize the West. I thought it was a bit of a cop-out, because I thought the Mandarin was a great supervillain character I think there was one storyline in the comic books where he did turn out to be a robot, or perhaps that wasn't the real Mandarin. I forget exactly how it went. Watching the first two Captain America movies, the first Avenger and the Winter Soldier, I was Steve Rogers. I had been Peter Parker. Excuse me. Excuse me when I have a drink of tea. I've got a dry throat. A drink of tea. And now Steve Rogers had different superpowers and an even more exciting world of action and high drama. The next movie on my list, Thor, introduces a god into the MCU. With this character, first in the comic books, this character, and then in the movies, Marvel has owned the original Superman, you might say, the divine hero from Viking culture, Thor, son of Odin. And here's the DVD case. Thor's. Excuse me. I must have another drink of tea. There is a difference here from the usual Marvel character, but it's handled very well. Thor is not just someone you might know. He is the very essence of humanity, perfectly realised in the dialogue and action. The epic now comes into play, and the interconnected Marvel Universe just got bigger. It becomes cosmic. Multiple storylines, from Captain America with the Cosmic Cube or Tesseract, Thor with the existence of Asgard, his awareness of many worlds and threats, Iron Man 2 and the introduction of the Black Widow character with S.H.I.E.L.D., the natural extension of the storyline comes to its climax in the big one, the epic Avengers movie. And this is what everyone was waiting for. Excuse me. The Avengers, or Avengers Assemble, sometimes known, aka Avengers Assemble, sometimes known as. The drama steps up into the epic. Even classical epic, having the Norse god Loki and Thor in action. Loki attempting to dominate the world with an alien army. Captain America, Thor, Iron Man,